Welcome today to a wonderful event that marks the contributions of Annie Fellows Johnston, who was internationally known for her wonderful children's stories. And of course, you wouldn't be here if you didn't know that already. So thanks for coming. Standing here in front of the beaches. I also wanted to, are the Kramers in the crowd too? I needed the Kramers up here. Would you all come on up here, please? The whole Kramer family who is ever here. And the children. The Kramers have taken a huge responsibility on their shoulders when they bought this home, and they've transformed it into one of the most beautiful spots in Pewee Valley. So I want to thank you so much for doing that and saving a historic treasure. Yeah. They're going to help with the unveiling. And they're allowing this marker to be on their property, so every time someone drives by and tramples on all of their flowers and all the area here, they are being gracious enough to let people do that. So it's wonderful that they did that. My name is Nancy Tice. I'm with the Oldham County Historical Society. Our director, Bob Martin, our chair, is standing right over here, and we have a few volunteers in our crowd as well. So we thank you all for making that responsible too. I'm looking at some of the people that have dressed up today in historical costume, and it's just wonderful. It's really quite nice. So first of all, I would like to introduce Amanda Higgins. She is with the Kentucky Historical Society Outreach Program. They are the program that are responsible for the Kentucky historical markers that are placed throughout the state, and she'll tell you a little bit about that program.
Good morning, y'all. Thanks for having me. Nice, thanks. The Historical Marker Program was founded in 1949, and the Kentucky Historical Society, which has been in existence since 1836, has been the administrator since 1949. It is a community-driven program. That means that communities apply for and pay for the markers, and we vet, write, and make sure that they are installed. We would also like to thank the Transportation Cabinet for their help in putting the marker up. It's really incredible to be out here and to see you all, to unveil this marker. Thank you for allowing it to be on your property. There are more than 2,400 markers across the state. You can read many of them on our app, which is Explore KY History. You can download it to your phone from the iPhone store or the Android store. You can see markers from across the state. So hopefully we will add, if you are comfortable, add your marker to it as well, so that all Kentuckians can enjoy this. We'd also just thank you for supporting local history, for maintaining the history of your communities, and we hope that in this year of Kentucky's 225th anniversary as a state, you will take a moment to think about your communities and their impact on Kentucky. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, I'd like to introduce Mayor Bob Rogers, who is responsible for maintaining this historic district and keeping everybody on board about what happens in Pewee Valley.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here with you today, as we honor a talented and creative children's book author who did some of her writings here at the beaches where we stand. Welcome to our town and to our one-time home of Annie Fellows Johnston. By adding this marker in her name, we immortalize her. We remember the time she spent in Pewee Valley and her writings. Her imagination inspired young girls reading her stories who were growing up more than 100 years ago. I'm proud to be here today because I believe that preserving history is important. History helps us understand who we are through the people and events that came before. Looking back can often shed light on today. History also allows us to show honor and respect to those individuals who changed the path of our entire nation. History is the roadmap to the future. Excuse me just a minute, let me get the text of that. Today we want to preserve a small piece of Pewee Valley's history, a well-known author of her time who was inspired by what she found here. the natural settings, the open spaces, even some real-life residents who made such an impression on her that they were included in some of her more than 40 published books. We gathered to celebrate her life, her writings, her love for Pewee Valley, and for her place in history. Now, before I turn this over to Donna Russell, our town historian, which probably I'm going to be turning it over to David next, I want to first recognize a few folks. Chris and June Kramer, the current owners of the beaches, who have spent countless hours and considerable resources on preserving this wonderful home and its grounds. They wanted to be true to the integrity of the home as it was originally designed, to bring back its stately charm. We want to thank you. I want to thank all the families who have lovingly maintained their historical homes in this town. Their effort to preserve the integrity and unique history of these homes is one of the things that makes Pewee Valley so special. And obviously I want to thank our town historian, Donna Russell, who has spent countless hours and time organizing the historical artifacts you're going to find in Town Hall. And also she's worked tirelessly on the website, PeweeValleyHistory.org. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming today, and I'll turn it back over to Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor Rogers. The next person I'd like to introduce is our County Judge Executive, David Vogel. Judge Vogel has been very instrumental in helping the Oldham County Historical Society on our renovation campaign. He's a true historian himself and is interested in the preservation of Oldham County in so many different aspects. Judge Vogel?
Thank you, Nancy. Standing here this morning, is it difficult to imagine how this setting may have been 100 years ago? I don't think so. I'm not an arborist, but some of these trees that we have around here may have been here as Annie Fellows Johnston thought about her characters and how she wrote her books. As you get closer to 100, it doesn't seem like that many years ago. So I'm creeping my way in that direction, and I'm not in any great hurry either, I might add, but it's going to happen that way. So this is a wonderful day to recognize the literary genius of someone who went before us in our community. We've all heard that you can't know about the future unless you examine what the past has been. We all learn from the past. The books that she wrote are still wonderful reading for young people today. Perhaps get off your iPhone. Maybe you can find a book on a Kindle or something like that. But as we grew up in the era that all of us, or many of us here, remember, we harken back to those days, and these stories are a wonderful exemplification of life in the late 1800s, early 1900s. To say 100 years ago was not that far back. You know what's important about history? We're all part of history. Some of us think, well, I'm a very, very small part. No one will ever notice me. Of course, we're noticed in our families and in our communities, and we all take part in things that become history and ways of life as time goes by. We engage in many of these things now and don't even realize it. We don't know where the tradition came from. It's just something that we inherited. June is coming up. June's a month that is normally associated with brides and flowers, and we don't really think about that, or just accept it. But a couple of 100 years ago, when people only took a bath about once a year, a lot of people got married, took their bath in May and got married in June, and walked down the aisle at that time with what were called George Washington flowers to help offset the fact they hadn't had a bath for a long time. Today we call our president Mr. President when he's addressed. That's a tradition that was begun by George Washington. We're carrying it on today, and we say, Mr. President, we don't even think about it. So historians are wonderful people. The people they write about are wonderful people, and today we're here to celebrate a wonderful person who preceded us in our community but has left a legacy that can be enjoyed by people throughout the world. And so when she lived in this home, as I say, I don't think the setting was dramatically different than it is today. And I thank the Kramers for what you've done. I'm not sure if you knew what you were getting when you bought this house, but I'm sure you all know who Annie Fellows Johnston is now, and the part you have become in spreading those stories and learning about them, and your young ladies here, hopefully maybe you've read a story or two and enjoyed the wonderful fiction that preceded you. So thank you all for being here today and helping our community celebrate a key part of its historical character in Pewee Valley. We have many wonderful historical stories associated with Oldham County, and I appreciate Nancy and everybody who works at the History Center for helping bring those stories out. And 100 years from today, someone may be looking at a picture of us standing here and wondering about those people. We're part of history too, so let's enjoy our part and enjoy this day.
Well, there is one true expert on the Little Colonel and Pewee Valley, and whenever anyone calls my office, I defer to Donna Russell, and I cannot tell you how much time and energy and dedication she has to this area.
I'd like to recognize, of the 35 Pewee Valley homes, churches, and other properties on the National Register, the Beaches is probably the most well known. Not so much for its architectural charms, which are substantial, but for the people who lived here. For 20 years, from 1911 to 1931, it was home to children's author Annie Fellows Johnston. She brought Pewee Valley worldwide fame with her popular Little Colonel stories. Started in 1895 while she was visiting Pewee Valley and completed here at the Beaches in her second-floor office in 1912. Today, it's hard to imagine just how beloved the Little Colonel series was. The books were translated into Italian, Spanish, Japanese, and Braille. Children formed Little Colonel clubs. They inundated Annie Fellows Johnston with fan mail. They played with Little Colonel puzzles and Little Colonel games. The January 24th, 1908 Norfolk, Nebraska Weekly News Journal said, "Book dealers all say that since the days of Miss Alcott, no author has taken so strong a hold on children, that the demand is steady, not fluctuating for her books." For many years, both before and after Annie's death, the Beaches was a mecca for Little Colonel fans, attracting up to 98 visitors in a single day. People came to see the real places that were mentioned in the books, not only the Beaches, but the Locust, the Gables right next door, the post office, the Pewee Valley Presbyterian Church, and the Little Colonel's cottage on Maple Avenue. All just as she described it, noted one visitor from England. And even after Annie moved into the Beaches with her stepdaughter, and even before Annie moved into the Beaches with her stepdaughter, Mary, the house and its occupants were part of the Little Colonel stories. It was built by Mamie Lawton after her husband, General Henry Ware Lawton, was killed in the Philippines during the Spanish-American War. Mamie and Annie had been friends and confidants since they met in 1898 when Annie was renting the Gables across Central Avenue from Edgewood, where Mamie grew up. And just as an aside, Edgewood's my house. It just faces the wrong way now. It was here at the Beaches that Mamie finished raising her 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and the house rang with laughter during the Lawton years. There were teas and dances, house parties and kimono parties, campouts and play rehearsals, meetings of the Pewee Valley Presbyterian Church's Ladies' Aid Society, and trips planned to the healing waters of Martinsville Springs, which Hattie Cochran went on with them, and to the dedication of the Lawton Monument in Indianapolis. Annie's inspiration for the Little Colonel herself, Hattie Cochran, spent many golden hours playing on the front porch with Frances, Catherine, and Louise Lawton, the inspirations for Alice and Kitty and Elise Walton in the Little Colonel stories. The Lawton's exploits served as fodder for Annie's books. Mamie and Annie kept up a lively and lifelong correspondence. One 1902 letter from Annie asked for Mamie's help with The Little Colonel's Hero, a book she was writing about the American Red Cross. In it, Annie wrote, "For the last 2 weeks, I've been struggling with The Little Colonel's Hero to the exclusion of everything else, and writing to all points of the compass for facts and figures. You'll be interested in, I know, being the lady who suggested it to me." Do you remember the day we dined at Mrs. Warfield's? The Warfields lived down West Cottage Lane. When you crossed the room and showed me the picture of the Red Cross war dog? Well, that is the hero, only I've changed him from a collie to a magnificent St. Bernard. The little colonel is to go abroad in this book. In Geneva, she comes into possession of Hero in a dramatic way. And there in that home of heroes, and in the cradle of the Red Cross movement itself, she becomes acquainted with the history of the association. In 1952, the Courier-Journal reported, "If you think the little colonel and her friends have been forgotten in these many years, you should visit Pewee Valley, as hundreds of others do yearly. If Miss Johnston took everyone upstairs who came to the beaches, the stairs would have worn out a generation ago. And people are still coming. They are, quote, just driving through," as two middle-aged couples told me when I met them there on their way from Florida to Providence, Rhode Island. "A little out of the way," they said, "but when we realized we were within a few hundred miles, we had to detour." On December 31st, 1967, the beaches became home to 4 generations of the Hollenbach family. That family was headed by Phil Hubbock Hollenbach, the man who directed the Little Colonel Players' very first full-length production in 1958. Phil served as a Little Colonel Players director for 16 years, from the time they started producing plays at Valley Camp off Maple Avenue, which was once owned by Hattie Cochran's parents and was known as Cochran's Woods, through their move to the present Little Colonel Playhouse on Mount Mercy Drive. He bowed out as director in 1974 and was named director emeritus in August 1984. In 1989, the Beaches was placed on the National Register of Historic Places as part of Pewee Valley's Central Avenue Historic District. And in 2010, June and Chris Kramer bought it and restored it to its present appearance.
Yeah, where's the heater?